The picture is live. The moment is now. 6 o'clock on a summer Friday evening in Los Angeles, but a Friday like none other in the history of Southern California, because the picture is of the Olympic torch being carried through the streets on West Pico Boulevard by Dr. Matt Ellenhorn. He just took the torch from another runner. He's a retired physician from Beverly Hills, California. What a moment for him. A moment, of course, the eve of the 1984 Summer Olympics. Tomorrow, a runner yet to be named will climb the final steps in the Memorial Coliseum and touch off the flame that'll burn throughout the games. But right now, this moment, this is a chance for many thousands who won't be at the opening ceremony to see the torch outshining the rays of the early evening sun. It seemed that the Olympic flame had hardly been extinguished at the Winter Games in Sarajevo before it was being rekindled at Olympia. There had been a flame at the ancient games, but the idea of the torch relay is a modern one. Begun at the Berlin Games in 1936. Now this flame would begin a very long journey, one that would take it across the Atlantic and then all over the United States, through 33 states in all, on a route of almost 9,000 miles. It started in controversy, some Greek officials resenting the fact that each kilometer of the relay was being sold for $3,000. They protested, even though the millions of dollars so earned would go to the advancement of American youth sports. But the relay will end tomorrow as a moving, dramatic story. One that has involved great athletes and handicapped people, old people, very young people, the strong, fleet, and handsome, the lame, the halt, and the blind. In the story of the flame, there's a story of America in the year 1984. The flame and the world are coming to Los Angeles for the Olympics, starting tomorrow.
You know, I've trained since January to do this, and it was a very personal honor for me. But after this week, it's much more than any one individual. It's much more than just me.
How do you feel about running with the torch? Fantastic experience. I'll tell you this, what's really amazed me is the number of people that turn out. Most nights, 2 o'clock, you have whole towns turn out. You know, the patriotism is still alive.
Only from outer space, as in this view made from an American spacecraft, can you get far enough back to take a long-range, objective view of what begins in Los Angeles tomorrow. Only from space can you see what a small thing this planet Earth really is. Only from space is it so apparent that whatever life exists on this tiny spinning sphere has a vested interest in banding together in some common interest. Only from space is it so obvious that the people of Earth are one people, really, for better or worse, for survival or extinction. From out there, you see so clearly that the future of mankind must lie in pulling together, not pulling apart. As we zoom in closer, we approach the place where mankind's largest regularly scheduled gathering will start tomorrow, the games of the 23rd Olympiad. The place is Los Angeles, California, an imperfect city in an imperfect world, but the city where in the next 16 days we will see events that reflect the state of mankind today. Men and women exposed to the close-up view of the world as they make the great effort of their lives, unsure of their ability to carry on until that final moment arrives. Hero or also ran, 10 feet tall at the moment of crisis, just another flawed, infinitesimal creature in the great universe. The athletes who have gathered from some 140 nations will march tomorrow afternoon into the arena used for another Olympics 52 years ago, the Los Angeles Coliseum. After them will come the flame, at long last ending its journey from Greece. The flame is the symbol. The athletes are the reality. From tomorrow on, it will be they who show what they're made of, they who compete with courage and dignity. The athletes of the world convening tomorrow, not to prove which country is superior to another, but to show what individual human beings can do. The athletes of the world, carrying the torch for mankind.
Of the 23rd Olympiad are being brought to you by Sears, where you'll find great values. There's more for your life at Sears. By Bud Light, proud sponsor of the 1984 Olympic team. By Nissan, builders of high-mileage, high-quality cars and trucks for 50 years, available at your Datsun dealer. And by McDonald's, sponsors of amateur sports from the neighborhood to the 1984 Olympics.
The live cameras seem to be everywhere in Los Angeles, cruising the city in helicopters, stationed at locations from Lake Casitas in the north, the scene of the rowing events, to the cross-country course for the equestrians 190 miles south of there. At this moment, you're looking at a live shot from a helicopter moving up towards the Hollywood Hills. There's the famous sign you've probably seen in pictures many times, but this is a live shot declaring that this, in fact, this is Hollywood. And there, the rest of sprawling Los Angeles, the downtown area, a growing downtown area, straight ahead of you. Slightly misted in the smog today, but not too bad. But high-rise skyscrapers rising as in the great cities to the east. This, then, is Los Angeles, and I am Jim McKay. Well, here we are again. ABC Sports on the scene, you in front of your set, and ahead of us, the most complete coverage ever given to a sporting event in the United States. 180 hours of coverage, morning, afternoon, prime time, and late at night. We begin this evening with a live look at some of the major venues and some of the competitors who will be favored in the events. We're going to try to give you the feeling of the tremendous scope of these games. More nations than ever before, more events, and so on. And we'll touch on the history of the Olympics as we move through the next 2 hours. These, believe me, will not be an Olympics without flaw or controversy. No Olympics ever has been. Already we've seen the boycott by the Soviet Union and a number of its friends and clients. You'll hear talk of drug tests and security. Is there too much or too little? There will be nationalism here and judging controversy and all the unpleasant things that reflect the nature of mankind. But someplace, almost obscured at times, will be the reason that the games exist, the individual human being. That original concept is often scoffed at, but the individual is what we remember most when each Games concludes. Whether it's Jim Thorpe way back there in Sweden, or Jesse Owens in Berlin, or Nadia Comaneci in Montreal, or that group of individuals, the American ice hockey team in Lake Placid. So while reporting on all aspects of these games, we're going to be focusing constantly and close up on the men and women from more than 140 nations who will make the memories of Los Angeles. Other humans have already become a part of that story, the thousands of people who have carried the torch on its remarkable journey across America. The hand of a great Olympian, Rafer Johnson, lighted a sparkler from the flame when it arrived in New York on May 8th. Then he ignited the torch. It began its journey through the streets of New York on a rainy day. First to carry it were Gina Hemphill, granddaughter of Jesse Owens, and Bill Thorpe, grandson of Jim Thorpe. Thorpe, whose Olympic medals were restored 70 years after they had been taken away. Shortly after, still in New York, the torch was passed to Abel Kiviat, 90 years old, silver medalist in the 1,500 meters at Stockholm in 1912, and roommate of Jim Thorpe at those games. Jim Thorpe. The name is almost synonymous with Olympics. Jim Thorpe sums up so much of what pleases and what concerns people about the Olympics. The idealistic picture of the man who rose from humble origins to world fame through his fairly won achievements on the playing field. But also the man who was stripped of his medals by hypocritical officials who too often seem to condone in one person what they condemn in another. The legacy of the Olympics is kaleidoscopic, at times contradictory and erratic, It's that first American team at Athens in 1896. The Rover boys abroad, finding their way to the games just in time for the opening ceremonies. Then competing on legs still rubbery from their long sea voyage and winning 9 of the 12 gold medals in track and field. It's the strange games of St. Louis in 1904, a mere appendage of the World's Fair, really, remembered mostly for strange exhibition events. And for the cheating scandal of Fred Lords, who hitched a ride in an automobile to become the seeming winner of the marathon until he later confessed. Paavo Nurmi of Finland epitomizes the mixed legacy of the Olympics. He won glory in 1924 and 28, then was banned for professionalism in 1932. 20 years later, he re-emerged as a national hero, lighting the flame to start the games in his native country. The legacy includes Babe Didrikson, coming out of Texas to strike a blow for the women's movement long before it was called that, showing in the 1932 Games of Los Angeles that a woman could be an athlete and still retain her charm and dignity. The Babe. There was Jesse Owens at Hitler's Games in 1936, pointing out with his achievements that the theory of a master race is an absurdity, shaming the man who considered those Olympics his private hunting preserve. There were Tommy Smith and John Carlos symbolically stating on the victory stand that black Americans were still often without honor in their native land 32 years after Jesse Owens. There was Bob Mathias, a teenage Adonis, winning the decathlon and repeating the feat 4 years later, in time sitting in the Congress of the United States. And Rafer Johnson, who lived a year of his childhood in a railroad boxcar, becoming the world's greatest athlete and later a friend of presidents. The Olympics have symbolized hope for the underdog, like Jose Pedraza, the Mexican woodcutter, surprisingly winning his country's first medal in track, in race walking, not normally a dramatic event. The Soviet Union has contributed to the legacy in the 8 summer games in which it has competed, from the 300-pound giant of weightlifting, Vasily Alexeyev, to the 85-pound giant of gymnastics, Olga Korbut, the charismatic figure of the Munich Games. And the basketball team that handed the United States its first defeat in that sport in a controversial finish. Consider the wide range of personalities who have dominated the men's swimming events. Duke Kahanamoku, the pure Hawaiian. Johnny Weissmuller, who became Tarzan. Buster Crabbe, who became Flash Gordon. Don Scholander, the Ivy Leaguer from Yale. And Mark Spitz, whom we watched grow up before our eyes even as he won glory in Munich. The Olympics, a striving for, not a realization of perfection. You know, when the ancient Olympics began, there was only one event, a foot race of one stade. That was about 200 meters. And ever since then, track and field's been at the heart of the Olympic competition. Now, those events will be held here in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. And Al Michaels, who will be covering them, is standing by there live right now. Al, when I was looking at the monitor a minute ago, I saw you mopping your brow, so I get the impression it's still hot out there, although it's after 6 o'clock in the evening. Also, it looks like maybe they painted the field green. It was brownish yesterday.
Jim, you do recall the old temperature gauge they used to have. Fortunately, they took it down because it is about 90 degrees right now, and they have indeed painted the field. I think they wanted to keep it a secret, but I suppose that's the end of their little secret, isn't it? You know, I think this will be a venue where some of the more dramatic stories will take place. Certainly, most of our best-known athletes on the entire United States Olympic team are members of our track and field aggregation. There's Carl Lewis, and we know so much about Carl right now, who seems to be on every magazine cover. The great Edwin Moses story. Can that incredible winning streak continue? And we know a lot about Mary Decker as well. Some think it's the best United States track and field team in history. Right now, let's meet some of the stars for the U.S. Everyone knows by now Carl Lewis will attempt to duplicate Jesse Owens' feat of 1936 as he tries to win the 100, the 200, the 4x100 relay, and the long jump, where some think he'll be able to set a world record. His sister Carol also seeks gold in the women's long jump. Another outstanding female athlete is America's top lady sprinter, Evelyn Ashford, who will be trying to win the gold in the 100, and she's also part of the 4x100-meter relay team. And then there's Antonio McKay, the brash youngster out of Georgia Tech, who will be one of the favorites in the men's 400 meters. Dwight Stones has won medals twice in the Olympics, in 72 and 76. Most thought he'd be retired by now, but no, he's the American record holder, going for the gold. Mike Tully came very close to not making the team at all during the trials. Before the night was done, though, he was the new American record holder in the pole vault. For a long time, Greg Foster ran in the shadow of Ronaldo Nehemiah, the world record holder. But Nehemiah is retired, and now Foster is the best in the world as he tries to win the gold in the 110-meter hurdles. In the 400-meter hurdles, there's just one man to think about, one man to beat. Edwin Moses with one of the most remarkable winning streaks in the history of sport. He's not lost a race since 1977, 102 wins in a row. And then there's Mary Decker, for a number of years now, America's premier middle distance runner. Queen Mary, as she's known to some, will not be doubling in these games. She'll be seeking the gold in just one event, the 3,000-meter run. Mary Decker. And then there's Steve Scott. He's the American record holder at 1,500 meters and also owns the second fastest mile of all time. He made the Olympic team, came in second in the trials, seeks a medal now in the Olympics at 1,500. In the 3,000-meter steeplechase, the top American is Henry Marsh. No question, one of the best in the world, a potential gold medalist here for the United States. Then there's the shot put, and that figures to be one of the closest competitions of all. Dave Lout heads the U.S. contingent. He was the only man over 70 feet in the Olympic trials in June. And the discus also figures to be close, with 3 Northern Californians heading the American contingent, led by John Powell, who was the winner of the trials. For many years, Marty LaQuarrie has been our expert analyst. He'll serve in that role during the track and field competition. Marty, do you agree with those who say this is our best team ever?
I think so. I think that the world will be surprised because they haven't seen this team in 8 years now, and there have been things going on in America like the running boom and increased corporate sponsorship that will make this a team that's much better prepared than teams in the past. Those are the things that are behind the scene, and then there's the quite obvious reason of being on their own home field, which I think is going to probably herald a new era in American track and field.
Briefly, what does the boycott mean to track and field?
Well, fortunately, athletes from every nation can compete in track and field. It's a basic sport, so the talent is distributed around the world. It's going to hurt, especially in the women's events, but the men's events aren't affected too much.
Some great foreign athletes will be here during the track and field competition. Let's highlight some of those for you right now. In the high jump, Zhu Jianhua of China is the world record holder. He's the only man to ever clear 7 feet 9 inches. His world mark is 7'10". For the women, from West Germany comes Ulrike Meifert, who at the age of 16 was the Olympic gold medalist in 19... a dozen years. 100 meters, one of the favorites will be Steve Cram of Great Britain, the world champion. The question is he healthy? In the longer distances, at 10,000 meters, Alberto Cova of Italy has a tremendous kick, and he's favored to win the gold. The Zola Budd story is well known. She is the South African expatriate now running for Great Britain, and one of the great head-to-head duels in these Olympics figures to be Budd against Mary Decker at 3,000 meters. Joaquin Cruz is well known to United States track and field fans. He goes to the University of Oregon, but he's a Brazilian. He'll run for them in 2 races in the Olympics. And then there is the effervescent Tina Lilac of Finland. In the javelin, she's the world record holder with a mark of 245 feet, 3 inches. Tina Lilac of Finland. So, a very impressive cast from both here and abroad. In just a moment, a live interview with a very special man, hurdler Edwin Moses. Said Edwin Moses was a very special man, so special, in fact, he has been selected above all others to tomorrow take the Olympic oath on behalf of all the athletes. What does that honor mean to you?
Well, that's quite an honor to me. I've been involved in the Olympic movement for 8 years now, and I've been a gold medalist for 8 years, but I think that this is the highlight of my career outside of running on the track.
You won a gold medal in 76, made the team in 80, but couldn't manifest it because of the boycott. I think you, better so than most any other athlete, could categorize or characterize this U.S. Olympic track and field team, your feeling going in.
Well, I think that never before have we had so many people going into the games that are expected to win gold medals, and this includes the women as well as the men, and I think it's really great.
We'll look forward to the continuance of your winning streak. You confident about it?
Yeah, I'm going to go in there. I'm prepared. I've been training since November, and all I can do is wait until next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Good luck to you. Edwin Moses. All right, let's go back to Jim McKay now. Jim?
All right, Al, and by the way, Edwin will be taking the oath for the athletes of the world at the opening ceremony tomorrow. You know, swimming has contributed some of the great names in the history of the modern games, and many of them have been Americans, male and female, including the most prolific gold medalist of any individual Olympics. Records are made to be broken, the cliche assures us, and that's true. But is it true that Mark Spitz's record in Munich, 7 gold medals, all in world record time, can be broken? Well, up until these games, it seemed not unlikely, but impossible, because the schedule of events in men's swimming was changed in such a way that no one could duplicate Mark's feat. Now, however, the old schedule of events has been reinstated, so if any swimmer has the talent and drive, there could be another Mark Spitz. The original will be helping to describe the events for us, and doing the stroke-by-stroke commentary will be Jim Lampley.
Here is a look at the Olympic pool on the campus of the University of Southern California, where dozens of Olympic swimmers are working out right now. And here live with me at poolside is the face of America's greatest name in Olympic swimming, 12 years after his exploits at Munich, and not looking all that much the worse for wear, Mark Spitz. Mark remains our expert for men's swimming events. We'll be receiving expert commentary on the women's events from my colleague Donna DeVerona. And this is a sport which embodies the good and bad effects of 2 consecutive Olympic boycotts. The bad effect, quite obvious. Many women, particularly, who would have been expected to win gold medals here, particularly those from the German Democratic Republic, are not here as a result of the Soviet nation's boycott. The good effect, however, is that some of the greatest swimmers over the past 8 years, most of them American, who didn't get a chance to swim in an Olympic Games 4 years ago, stayed in the sport, and they will be here to fulfill their Olympic dream in this pool. Mark Spitz, what do you most look forward to in the men's events?
Well, Jim, I think this is the best team that we've chosen in the last 12 years. And of the 15 men's events, I predict that we're going to win 12 gold medals. Perhaps the man which will be able to break the American domination of the sport of swimming will be Michael Gross. He's from West Germany. He's the world record holder in the 200 meters freestyle and the 200 meters butterfly. But American gold medal hopefuls will come from Rick Carey in both backstroke events, Pablo Morales and I think the 2 butterfly events, Rowdy Gaines, Mike Heath, and George DiCarlo in the freestyle events, and Steve Lundquist and John Moffitt in the breaststroke events. And perhaps the greatest duel will be between Lundquist and Moffitt in the 100 meters breaststroke. And that race will be the first day of competition on Sunday.
We'll see if a man can emerge here to become king of the sport as you were, Mark. And in fact, Donna DeVerona was the queen of American swimming back in the early 60s. This is how she looked in a gold medal winning relay effort at the Tokyo Games in 1964. And this is how she looked at about the same time on a cover of a national magazine. And this is how she looks right now and will for the next couple of weeks as she works with us. Donna, what do you most look forward to in the women's competition?
Well, Jim, there's no question that our women feel compelled to reach for world records just because the German Democratic Republic won't be here. And of course, the last time the women competed in Olympic competition, we only won 1 gold medal on the last day in the 400-meter freestyle. Well, I think the story's going to be different here. I predict that we can win 11 out of 14 events. One of the reasons why we're strong is that we have 7 Olympians returning from the 1980 Games, and the core of that event swam during the Berlin 1978 World Championships when they defeated the East Germans. We also have athletes that could win more than 1 gold medal in individual events. That's Mary T. Maher, Tracy Calkins, and Tiffany Cohen. Now, if we're weak in any stroke, Jim, it'll be in the breaststroke events, and we can look at Nagasaki, Japan swimmer, and we can look at a Romanian. The Romanians have never won a medal in swimming in the Olympics. Her name is Carmen Bunasia. She's 6'3" and weighs 163 pounds.
And has a chance in the backstroke events. But most of the stars here will be American. We'll be back to talk to 2 of them after this. Years after Montreal, the American Olympic trials were an emotional experience. For John Moffitt, moments after breaking the world record in the 100-meter breaststroke. For 22-year-old Nancy Hogshead, who retired after 1980, but returned to live out her Olympic dream. For youngster Pablo Morales, who sent a message to his mother after breaking the world record in the 100-meter butterfly. For double world record holder Mary T. Maher, best in the world for 6 years, but making her first trip to the Olympic Games. For George DiCarlo, who awoke American distance swimming after 8 years of dormancy with a double American record-setting performance. For 25-year-old Rowdy Gaines, who after 4 years of trial and tribulation had finally realized his dream. For Tracy Calkins, who set the world on fire back at the 1978 World Championships and will lead the American women in Los Angeles. And for Rick Carey, the greatest backstroker in history, after breaking his world record in the 200 meters once again. And now here with me live at poolside is Rick Carey, favored to win both backstroke events. Rick, your accomplishments are individual, and we think of it as an individual sport, but for the last month, you've been living in a team environment with the American team. What do you see as the attitude of the other swimmers that are coming here with you?
I feel it's very confident. I feel confident, and everyone around me seems very confident. I think we're going to do real well.
You are known as a technician who makes plans to do things. Do you have specific plans for trying to break your world records in the two backstroke events here?
Well, the way I've been practicing and the way I feel in the water is I feel I'm very capable of going faster, and I've been resting a little more than I rested at trial, so I think I'll be faster.
With all the things you've done in swimming, you've never been to an Olympic Games. Are you excited?
Yeah, this is real fun. I made the team in 80, but we didn't go, so I'm real happy to be here.
Well, we wish you the best of luck, and another swimmer to whom we certainly wish the best of luck is the woman who's been the queen of American swimming for the past 7 years. A lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of hard work, and a lot of disappointments for you along the way. Is it enough just to finally be here at an Olympics, or do you have specific expectations of what it'll take to make it all worthwhile?
Well, it's been fun along the way, but finally I'm here at an Olympic Games, something that I've tried to shoot for all my life, and it's really great to be here and have this opportunity.
Unfortunately, we can't let you forget the absence of the East German swimmers. With them not being here, will it be important to swim fast times to try to break world records?
Well, I think so. It would be really nice to have the fastest time in the world at the end of this season, but I think the most important thing at the Olympics is to swim to win, and so I'm just going to go out there and race and try and do my best times, and if a world record comes, that'll be great.
Tracy, our thanks to you and to Rick Carey as well for being with us live here. Swimming competition gets underway Sunday. There will be 4 races: the women's 100-meter freestyle, the men's 100-meter breaststroke, the women's 400-meter individual medley, and the men's 200-meter freestyle. You'll be seeing trials and finals of all those events here Sunday. Now let's go back to Jim McKay in our command studio, to Keith Jackson, to talk about the women's basketball team. Here's Keith Jackson right now with a report on women's basketball.
Well, those who have watched this women's basketball team come together generally agree this could be the best one ever. A front line that includes 6'3" Janice Lawrence, number 10, played on 2 national champion teams at Louisiana Tech. A power player inside with 3 years of international experience. Number 6, Lynette Woodard, 5'11", may be the strongest on the women's team. 4-time All-American, 2-time academic All-American, international experience considerable, including a year in Italy. And there is number 9, Cheryl Miller, the most highly recruited high school player in the country after 2 years at USC, twice All-American, 2 national championships, member of the 1983 Pan Am and World Championship team. Both winners. She makes things happen. The coach of the 1984 Women's Olympic Basketball Team, Tennessee's Pathead Summitt. Coach Summitt, a member of the 76 team that won a silver medal. This week I talked to her.
With the Soviet boycott, it would appear that your women would be favored. More pressure?
I think so. I told our team immediately after the boycott announcement, I thought it put us in a position to have to be able to be the Soviets more or less in the eyes of the opposition, and I think people will really be gunning for our basketball team, and I think it's a great challenge for them.
Is this the best group of athletes you've ever coached, Pat?
It's the best basketball team that I've ever coached, and I think that it has by far the best athletes, particularly at the forward position, that we've seen on a women's team.
Your eyes are bright and blue, but I suspect there's a glitter of gold behind them. You really think it's possible?
I think it's definitely possible. I think it's very realistic, and it's certainly a goal that this team has in their minds.
Cheryl Miller may be the prototype of the new generation in women's basketball. If it's a compliment to say she plays like a man, so be it. Women's basketball became a medal sport in 1976. They didn't win the gold, but they got a lesson in how to play the international game. Missing 1980, they come to 1984, Soviets or no, looking like they could be the best women's basketball team in the world.
The story of the Olympic torch has provided many moving moments as it's made its way across America. It's become really the sports event viewed live by more people than any other event in history. An estimated 30 million people will have seen it in person. In Santa Fe, some of them watched Bess James here, a 75-year-old marathon runner, carry the torch. And now you're looking live in the streets of Los Angeles again, carrying the torch. Clyde Wood Jr., interestingly, he was preceded by a man who's a board chairman and president of a big company and will be handing over, when he gives over the torch, to a UAW mechanic. So Americans of all stripes, of all professions, of all colors, of all ages have been carrying the torch. It's live. It's
always been tough to be a cable.
That our live cameras were just about everywhere. Right now, that is a live shot just after 6:30 in the evening in Los Angeles at the Marina del Rey, where there are sailboats and yachts, well, literally from all over the world. I know one friend of mine brought his boat all the way out from Baltimore, Maryland. They're here from all over the United States and from many countries. Live pictures from Los Angeles. We're beginning our coverage. Now, Donna DeVerona is still standing by out at the swimming stadium. We're going to approach a different subject, however, than just swimming. We're going to talk about the women's influence in these Olympic Games. Donna, of course, is one of our commentators. She's also the president of the Women's Sports Foundation, has worked in the United States Senate to get many of the things that have happened for women in sports. Donna, it's good to have you with us in this particular regard, too, because it's a fascinating subject.
Thank you, Jim. You know, things have changed a lot. It's well documented that in ancient Greece, if a woman dared to spectate, it was on penalty of loss of life. They threw these people off cliffs. I guess that's because the men wore no clothes when they competed. Then in 1896, when Pierre Baron de Coubertin initiated the modern games, things got a little bit better because they could be spectators. And then after that, it all started to change.
No question. And let's have a look right now at the piece you put together for us, Donna.
Thank you.
At the turn of the century, the past was made to look the other way as women first entered the games, competing in golf, tennis, and later chinning themselves on other events. The tug of tradition kept hems very low. Tradition blushed again in 1912 when women proved their kick in the water, diving into the Olympic pool. As would happen so many times over the years, the introduction of each new Olympic event for women churned up a wake of enthusiasm. In the 1928 games, women went the distance, competing in 5 track and field events. When a runner collapsed with fatigue at the end of the 800 meters, the women's program was cut back, as if exhaustion itself wasn't in the habit of catching up to the men. Just when women's sports needed a heroine most, a Texas State Fair sewing champ named Dietrichson arrived. First name Mildred, but everyone called her Babe, just like Babe Ruth. Her 2 gold medals and 1 silver here in the 1932 games made her a symbol of change, an athlete whose excellence widened the lane to the future. But it wasn't until the 60s, with athletes like triple gold medalist Wilma Rudolph, Wyoming Attias, and others, that women's athletics became more than a pioneering effort by a handful of individuals. In 1968 at Mexico City, there was 3-time gold medalist Debbie Meyer. In 1972, the unforgettable Olga Korbut, gymnastics goodwill ambassador, ushered in a new era for her sport. And in 1976, Romanian Nadia Comaneci took it to perfection.
Okay, Donna, then is it all coming up roses for women at the Olympics?
I think it's better than ever. We'll see in team sports here that women's scholarships that were opened up in the 70s will bear the fruits of labor with our competition. There are 11 or 12 new events added to this program, and just the other day, or today, the IOC voted the 10,000 meters in for the 1988 games. But still, we're looking at an event where women are still competing for half or less than half the medals than the men are.
Okay. Always somewhere still to go. Right now we're going to move to a sport that's still strictly a masculine preserve, and rightly so, boxing. It's either the most basic of sports or maybe no sport at all, depending on your viewpoint. Many professional champions, of course, have emerged from the Olympics. Many of them have hit the heights. Many have plumbed the depths. It made us conscious of the passage of the years to see Muhammad Ali carry the torch through the streets of his native Louisville. The Olympic light heavyweight champion of 1960, Cassius Marcellus Clay, was the old champ now, plodding along. The Ali shuffle reduced to a slow jog. The days of glory, a matter for the memory book. But he carried the torch, and we wondered if another Ali would come again. Could it be Mark Breland, the quick-minded, talented young boxer from Brooklyn? He carried the torch, too, through the South Bronx in his native New York. And some think he has the look of greatness.
Mark Breland's right hand not only carried that torch, it has carried him to incredible fame as a mere amateur fighter. knockout after knockout. 5 New York Golden Gloves titles, 3 World Championships. As now we take you inside the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena, dedicated in 1959 by then Vice President Richard Milhouse Nixon, but now given a sparkling new look. And here is the young welterweight Mark Breland. We've talked about the fame you've already garnered. Does it place a heavy burden on you going into the contests, which begin on Sunday?
Yeah, at times, I think about all the publicity I've been getting, and I look at some of the books now and then, but I try not to look at them all because some of the things they say, sound a little braggish, and then they boosted me up a little bit too high, but I'm trying to just, keep that on the side so things go.
All right, Mark, you go against a youngster from Canada, Wayne Gordon, this Sunday. What do you know about him? Have you seen any films at all?
No, I've never seen him fight. He's been talking a lot about, fighting me. He said he's going to beat me. Well, I can understand that, but I'm ready for him. I'm going to get out there and do a lot of boxing and show him where I'm from.
You've got one problem. Barring walkovers, to win the gold, you will have to do what Ray Leonard did. Fight 6 fights in just 2 weeks or a little less. Do you have the stamina for that?
Oh, yeah, my stamina is up right now. And, what I'm going to do more now is box. Do a lot of boxing. I don't want to hurt my hands throughout the tournament trying to, get out there and try to knock everyone out. I think with the boxing and a lot of movement, I can surprise a lot of the fighters and get out there and do a lot of things that they never seen me do before.
You mentioned your hand. You brought it up. May I just take that hand and perhaps we can zoom in on it? You had surgery on it. This knuckle troubles me. Does it trouble you at this point?
No, not at all. Right now, my knuckle feels great. I've been fighting since the operation. The doctor, what he did with it was fix the tissues, and right now it is hard, and I have no problems with it.
Good luck to you. We look forward to
Thank you very much.
Take care, Mark.
Thank you.
Mark Breland. Now, there are 11 other Americans that constitute this hockey team, and we would like you to meet them one by one, so that we cover the total 12 weight classifications that constitute Olympic boxing. So we begin right here and now, and we talk first of a light flyweight, a remarkable young man who has a difficult first bout. Paul Gonzalez is the light flyweight, 20 years old, from East Los Angeles. He's a tall kid, uses his reach and height very well indeed, moves about the ring well, an excellent young boxer. The flyweight is Steve McCrory, age 20, from Detroit, 2-time national champion, former world champion. He can box and he can punch, which you see him doing right there. The bantamweight is Robert Shannon, age 21, Marysville, Washington. A member of the 1980 team that didn't get to go to Moscow. He stayed around for this chance. He's making the most of it. The featherweight is Meldrick Taylor, only 17, in his brief career, a scintillating victory over the legendary Cuban champion Adolfo Horta. Pernell Whitaker is the lightweight, age 20, from Norfolk, Virginia. He's the reigning world champion, has dominated his division in the recent years, has cleaned up on Angel Herrera of Cuba. And the light welterweight is Jerry Page, who found himself in the Olympic box office with great performances against Tim Rabone of Louisiana. And you see Jerry right there winning. The light middleweight is the most improved boxer of them all, Frank Tate, only 19, from Detroit. Current world champion, won that title with an upset win over Canadian Sean O'Sullivan in this year's competition. And Virgil Hill is the middleweight, fine all-around athlete, maybe the longest shot on the U.S. team, yet good enough to have beaten Bernardo Comas of Cuba. Evander Holyfield is the light heavyweight, got here the hard way, beat the world champion Ricky Womack 4 times in 6 bouts, and he deserves to be here. The heavyweight is Henry Tillman. He's 23, the oldest fighter on the team, but he has an excellent left jab. He can show occasional power too, uses the ring well. And, of course, the super heavyweight is Darrell Biggs, the man with the dream of gold. He's quick-handed, quick-footed fighter. For his size, he uses the left jab beautifully. So there they were and are your United States Olympic boxing team for the Games of 1984. And be sure to be with us this coming Sunday so you can see Mark Breland debut against Wayne Gordon of Detroit. This may be the best amateur boxing team ever. Back to Jim McKay.
Okay, thank you very much, Howard. And again, a live shot. There's the Coliseum.
The games of the 23rd Olympiad continue live from Los Angeles.
Ever since that dreadful day in Munich, security's been a vital part of the Olympic mosaic. Here in Los Angeles, it's been a subject of interest and of controversy for a long time. The Soviets, of course, claimed lack of security was a key reason for their boycott. It's important to remember, I think, that security in the Olympic Village is not only for the physical protection of the athletes, but also to give them privacy, to give them time to mingle among themselves, to compare notes with people of a common interest from other countries. Now, Kathleen Sullivan is outside the village at the University of Southern California right now. First of all, Kathleen, looks a little more comfortable for outdoor work than it was in Sarajevo. Also, you're right outside your alma mater, which looks a little different right now.
Boy, you know, the last time I was here, I think we were going to a fall football game and, you know, a little beer and a couple floats, and we were all very happy. But the scene here is a much more sober one tonight. Jim, it's very easy to believe that this is being called the largest peacetime security effort ever. 17,000 security guards protecting 7,500 athletes for these games. Of course, as this bus goes by, which are carrying in some of the athletes in and out of this USC Olympic Village, security planners here, of course, have prepared for the worst possible scenario. However, there have been no specific terrorist threats to this game. Behind me, the USC Village, as I said, one of 3 Olympic villages, this one housing athletes from 79 countries. A case of a university village turned virtually into a guarded camp. Miles of double fencing, reinforced with barbed wire and electric sensors, surround each Olympic village. Encoded credential badges must pass computer verification before entering. The badges are essential to movement in and around the Olympic villages. The Australian cycling team rides with them. And everywhere the athletes go, they're watched. The observers usually remain out of sight. Across town at the UCLA Olympic Village, the rooftops are covered with communications and surveillance equipment. Observation posts set up at strategic vantage points. Moving athletes to and from venues also requires some overt security measures. This new gateway at UCLA's Pauley Pavilion may at first look decorative, but is actually a secured walkway for gymnasts. When transporting athletes to other venues, buses are swept for hidden explosives. Their routes across LA freeways kept secret. Yet they are always escorted by sheriff's deputies in a convoy on the ground, and overhead, yet another security backstop. When athletes arrive at the venue, they're met by the LA Olympic Committee's own guards.
There are over 50 agencies that have some responsibility for security during the Olympic Games. Those agencies are at the local level, the county level, the state, and the federal levels.
But there's been a running dispute that with 30 Olympic sites in a 4,500 square mile area, which law enforcement agency is in charge? For example, a problem in Long Beach would be handled by the Long Beach Police Department. Local police have the first responsibility. LA's finest, the LAPD, will handle most of the central Olympic events. Then bring in the county sheriffs, the FBI, the President's Secret Service, and the National Guard, all to form a massive and overlapping security net. Offshore, the Coast Guard has also called up 100 extra boats and ships to protect yachting events. The FBI's hostage rescue team has been placed on alert. Airspace has been restricted to the more than 700 security helicopters, and even the blimp has been drafted into service. All of the security and intelligence information, from bomb threats to traffic tie-ups, are funneled here to the command center, a kind of war room where planners coordinate security procedures for all the law enforcement agencies. Since Los Angeles received these games, Olympic planners have had 2 goals in mind. 1, to protect the athletes, and 2, to protect these athletes without turning in Los Angeles into giving Los Angeles the appearance virtually of a police zone. Well, it's a much different scene here in Los Angeles than it was in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia, where armed guards stood at virtually every street corner. However, you do get the feeling here of the very heavy hand of some intense security planning. The torch is now on its way to the Coliseum. It's apparently somewhere in Los Angeles. I have no idea, but Bob Beatty is there with the torch. Bob?
Well, what so happens, Kathleen, that we're down here. I tell you, the people are going crazy. I can hardly hear myself thinking. I guess that's okay. We happen to be looking at Ashton Chase, and it just so happens he just graduated from the University of Colorado. Make a lot of people at home feel pretty good about that. You know, this has been amazing. People have been out here with their flags. They've been bopping all over the place. I don't know about some of you, but I've heard a lot about this throughout the whole summer, and people coming around the country and wondering just what this is all about. I'll tell you, when you get out here and see this scene, you really know. Ashton, how's it feel running out here?
Outstanding, really outstanding.
Is this better than the University of Colorado?
Well, you can't beat that Colorado sunshine, though. And that was
thrill of a lifetime. Okay, back to you, Jim.
Okay, the live scene in the streets of Los Angeles. It's the night before the opening ceremony of the '84 Olympics.
Speaking to you from the diving venue on the campus of the University of Southern California. In addition to my gymnastic assignment, I'm delighted to be covering this sport. And working with me will be Cynthia Potter, who won the bronze medal in the springboard competition at the Montreal Olympics in 1976. She agrees with most everyone else that the United States has sent to Los Angeles its strongest diving team yet. Its strongest competition should come from the People's Republic of China. Only 2 divers made each country's Olympic team, so the competition worldwide has been fierce. It all starts on August 5th, and anticipation is high for many American medals. In the women's springboard event, a gold medal could be won by Kelly McCormick, whose diving blood is as blue as the Pacific Ocean. Her mother is Pat McCormick, who won 4 gold medals in 2 Olympic Games before Kelly was born. In the women's 10-meter platform event, world champion Wendy Weiland has a chance at a gold medal. Although edged by Michelle Mitchell in the Olympic trials last month, Wendy is a strong performer outdoors, and both women can give the Chinese stiff competition. The United States men's team centers around a 24-year-old Samoan, Greg Louganis, who may be the best diver ever. Greg first splashed into the diving world at the Olympic Games in Montreal, winning a silver medal when he was 16 years old. In the springboard, he will be joined by Ron Marriott, and Greg is almost certain to take the gold. He will also be the favorite in the 10-meter platform, an event he shares with his American teammate, Bruce Kimball. Greg combines the grace of Fred Astaire with the power of a fullback, and he enters the water as quietly as a nun slipping into church. When you watch Louganis, you're watching perfection. Greg Louganis. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all be like that? But you know, the Olympics are for everyone. And we saw that in such a warm and uplifting way as the Olympic torch was relayed across the country. The handicapped were such a great part of this Olympic happening. There was Jack Coakley carrying the torch in his wheelchair. A journey of desire that was reflected on other faces around the country. Steve Streeter, an ex-football star drafted by the Redskins in 1981, felt the spirit of the flame as he carried it through Bryson City, North Carolina.
Oh, it's better than playing football on a Saturday. I love it.
An automobile accident had ended Steve's hope for an NFL career. Then there was Gordie Howe, ex-star of the Detroit Red Wings, running with Craig McFarland. Craig was a downhill gold medalist in the U.S. National Ski Championships for the blind. And there was our own O.J. Simpson, the bright star out of USC. O.J. has known great moments, many of them. But after passing the torch to cerebral palsy victim Michael Bailey, O.J. commented, it was as big a thrill as winning the Heisman Trophy. The handicapped were indeed a major part of the story of the Flames' journey across America. And this year, for the first time, wheelchair races will appear as official exhibition events at the Olympics on August the 11th in the Coliseum. These handicapped athletes will go 1,500 meters and 800 meters. And there were even trials for the events held in July on Long Island, the first trials of their kind for wheelchair athletes. With the spirit and dedication of these athletes, the races here promise to be very special.
Just joined us. I'm Jim McKay. We're live in Los Angeles, and behind me, that is a live shot of the downtown city because it is always just coming up on 7 o'clock in the evening here. Still plenty of daylight left. Well, we all know that Dr. James Naismith invented the game of basketball in a YMCA in Springfield, Massachusetts, and that since then, this totally American invention has spread around the world. However, countries that were mere opponents, unquote, for the USA in the 1930s have now grown into dangerous adversaries. Basketball then will be fascinating here in Los Angeles, I think, and Keith Jackson will be bringing us the action play-by-play.
Men's basketball became a medal sport in the Olympics in 1936 in Berlin, and from the beginning was dominated by the Americans. 1968, many top players chose not to participate, and a 19-year-old junior college player named Spencer Haywood became the star as the U.S. won a 7th straight gold medal, beating Yugoslavia in Mexico City. 1972, after 62 straight Olympic wins, the string was broken. A bizarre affair, the string broken by the Soviet Union. Ivan Yudeshko, floor length pass to Sasha Bailoff, with the U.S. leading by a point. Bailoff muscled in the winning basket, and despite all rules and protocol being broken, the Soviets took home the gold medal 51-50. The Americans refused the silver. 1976 Montreal, the U.S. regained the gold medal, beating Yugoslavia 95-74. Adrian Dantley was the leading scorer. Their closest call, a 95-94 win over Puerto Rico. Unlimited joy as the gold medal was brought back home. Yugoslavia won the gold in 1980 in Moscow, so Yugoslavia is the Olympic defending champion in 1984. And in 84, the U.S. front line includes people like Michael Jordan, two-time unanimous All-American from North Carolina, Player of the Year, top scorer on the 83 Pan Am gold medal winners at 6'6", 197. Jordan is a truly gifted player who can take a basketball game, shake it, and win it. There is Patrick Ewing, All-American at Georgetown the past 2 years, NCAA tournament MVP as the Hoyas won the collegiate championship. 7 feet high, 240, a fierce defender who's getting better and better at taking the ball to the basket. There is Sam Perkins, 3-time All-American at North Carolina, 6'9", 230, quiet man who plays quietly, but when the game is done, always figures in the plays that make the difference. The team 9-0 versus the NBA players in their training games. The coach is Bob Knight of Indiana University. Intensity cascades from this man like Niagara Falls. Courtside behavior limited by international rules. This week I talked to him.
Do you think the United States should be considered the virtual lock for a gold medal as some want to present?
I don't think there's any way. We lost the World University Games last summer to the Canadians. We lost the World Championship in 1982 to the Russians, and I think the Yugoslavians, as an example, just 2 weeks ago beat the Russians very handily. I think that the Russians and the Italians playing back and forth, so maybe the Russians win 6 games, the Italians win 4, and I think it would be almost the same thing with the Spanish. And as I've looked at teams play throughout the world, and the thing that our players have to understand, and we've played with a relative degree of success against pro players, as you've mentioned. Yet now structure, organization comes into play, and I think it's going to be very important that our players understand that that's what they're going against. There may not be an Isaiah Thomas in the game in terms of individual talent, but now there are going to be better screens, there are going to be tougher things that we have to play against defensively. The defenses are going to be mixed up against us by teams that have been working on those defenses. I think that our ability to understand that it's not who we play or how they play, but how well we play will make all the difference to us.
It is here at the Forum, the home of the Los Angeles Lakers, that the men's and women's basketball competition will be held for these 1984 Olympic Games. On the court behind us, the national team of Brazil going through a light workout. This is a team that may very well be a prime medal contender during the course of the basketball competition. Hello, everybody. I'm Keith Jackson. Our analyst for the men's basketball during the games will be Coach Digger Phelps of Notre Dame. And Digger, it seems to me Bob Knight would love to wash away that idea, get rid of it, that his team is a lock for a gold medal.
Well, everybody knows we have the best talent, the best players in the United States, and the game is an American game, and all these teams coming in figure the U.S. to win the gold. So there's no pressure on these teams, and any one of them on a given night can upset the United States.
Our people playing at the college level, a finesse game in this country, have never really been exposed to the kind of physical abuse they're going to get in these Olympic Games either.
That's true. You're going to see two factors entering these games. The officials, one, and the physical play, two. The officials, the international game is played differently than what we see, and they allow certain contact to go, especially off the board and on the boards. The second part of it, as far as what goes on with the international game itself, teams like Yugoslavia, teams like Italy, who really can dominate on the boards and really give you that physical finesse that they need, that's something that the American players won't understand until they get involved with that competition the second week.
The opening game for the United States will be Sunday evening, a game against China, a team that really doesn't figure to pressure the Americans too much, so it should help them get through the opening round jitters.
If you're anywhere near as old as I am, you remember those Esther Williams movies, the ones where the heroine rose from the sea instead of from humble origins. It was Hollywood at its most spectacular. Oh, the idea went all the way back to Annette Kellerman in a 1914 movie, and there had been the aquacade at the New York World's Fair and a competitive sport in Australia. But Esther Williams touched off something that now has grown into an Olympic sport for the first time, synchronized swimming, an all-women's event. Reporting on it for us, the $1 Million Mermaid herself, Esther Williams.
You know, it's very exciting for me to see synchronized swimming finally recognized as the wonderful and difficult sport that it is, and to see it come here to my hometown for its first appearance as a medal sport in the Olympics. Synchronized swimming had a bright moment in 1952 when it was a demonstration sport at the Helsinki, Finland Games. Since then, it has evolved into a precise and complex sport. The story of synchronized swimming in the past few years would not be complete without including a young lady named Tracy Ruiz. She is considered the world's best, and she's America's greatest hope for a gold medal. She will perform in both the solo and duet competitions. And like skaters or platform divers, synchronized swimmers are judged on their precision and their artistic form. If a woman competes in the solo event, her compulsory figure score will also count as her team's figure score in the duet competition, in which the routine exercises promise to reveal the most sweeping and demanding of moves. In the duet routine, competitors are prohibited from touching the bottom. They must generate their own power for the most difficult maneuvers in a sport that combines the grace of gymnastics with the strength of water polo.
Unlike the gentle grace and calm waters of synchronized swimming, water polo has logged a bloody and violent history. The 1956 Olympic matchup between Hungary and the Soviet Union is perhaps the most famous game ever played. So bitter was the rivalry, so fierce was the play. Participants were battered and bloodied, and the game was halted before its completion. Since those days, there have been rule changes in order to curb the violence, yet the sport is still extremely physical, with 90% of the contact being made under the water, out of view, and undetected by the referee. Water polo is the Olympics' oldest team sport. Traditionally, European teams have been the strength of the game. The U.S. hasn't won the gold in 80 years. But this year's club is strong, and the chance for the gold is great. This team is a unique blend of mature, well-educated businessmen who are said to be the best conditioned athletes of any kind in the world. They come from schools like Stanford, UCLA, and Berkeley. They are bankers, realtors, computer programmers, even an aspiring chiropractor. 9 of the 13 players were members of the 1980 Olympic team, a team many felt then was strong enough to win the gold medal. Denied that chance because of the boycott, they have spent the last 4 years in an effort to achieve the top prize, which they felt could have been theirs in Moscow. United in sacrifice, putting their families and business careers in the deep freeze, their effort continues to establish themselves as the best in their sport.
And again, the live picture, a man named Kim Yoon carrying it through an area known as Little Korea. And of course, the next Summer Olympics will be in Korea. With you at the opening ceremony starting at 4:30 California time tomorrow afternoon. That's, of course, 7:30 in the evening Eastern time. I'm happy to say that with me on this occasion will be Peter Jennings, the anchorman and the senior editor of ABC's World News Tonight. As a matter of fact, he's in the studio right now. And Peter, of course, the idea would be to have all the nations of the world here. Unfortunately, they are not all here, as we know, including one of the great athletic powers, the Soviet Union.
Jimmy, it's no secret, I think, that these games, no matter how successful they're going to be, are going to be marked, as you've already said on the broadcast earlier this evening, by the fact that the Soviets decided not to come. I was talking to Moscow at some length today. In terms of sports in Moscow at the moment, the games are virtually a non-event. Politically, they are the object of considerable derision in the Soviet press. Joining us briefly is Yuri Ustimenko, who is the West Coast correspondent for the Soviet news agency TASS. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions about your general reporting today?
Certainly not.
Your national press reports today that the massacre at McDonald's in San Ysidro, California, is the kind of thing that could happen to anyone visiting America's Olympic state. You live here. Do you believe that?
Well, I believe that anything can happen in the United States, and I hope you will agree with me that a thing that happened in San Ysidro, near San Diego, is not something that was a chance. It wasn't something that was done by someone who was deranged, mad to all the intents and purposes. Who made him mad? Who made him deranged? I believe that things like these are products of the society.
Soviet television says today that visitors to the games have to walk down streets controlled by one or other armed gang. What street do you think they had in mind?
Well, you would have to ask Soviet television for that. Well, I can't answer for them. The only route I've taken so far, and mind you, I arrived only yesterday, was from my hotel to the main press center. And the only happening out of the ordinary that, well, happened to me was when I got propositioned by a very good-looking lady at the hotel.
Your official concern has been about the security here. If your government was so concerned about Soviet athletes' safety here, how come 200 Soviet officials, journalists, judges, referees are here? Aren't you afraid?
I can speak for TASS. There are two of us. There is, I understand, the correspondent of Pravda from Washington. There is a correspondent of Novosti Press Agency. I wouldn't know about the rest of the people you're talking about, Mr. Jennings. With all respect, I am not sure of the number.
Do you think in a phrase that all of this stuff that you're reporting to the Soviet people are convincing the Soviet people?
I am not convincing the people in my country to believe anything. The job that I'm doing and the job I have to do as a member of a wire agency, as a task man, is to report the facts, and this is what I'm doing.
A small example. Thank you very much for joining us. Jim, a small example of how the two superpowers view these games in such a different way. We'll have a lot of chance to talk about that tomorrow.
Okay, and of course, Peter, as you know, you had hoped to talk live to Walt Rogers in Moscow this evening. However, at the last minute on the last day, Walt was told that the facilities would not be available. So the Olympic torch goes on, still being carried through the streets of Los Angeles. There you see it, the live picture. And the Olympics start tomorrow. One of the fascinations of the Olympics is the diversity of its locations. Los Angeles this time, 7,000 miles and almost 100 years away from the first modern games in Athens, the cradle of democracy and the Olympics. Los Angeles, the world's largest ocean and a cultural world away from Korea, where the next games will take place. The state of California contains tremendous diversity within itself, almost 1,000 miles of coastline from Oregon to Mexico. Do you like snow-capped mountains? California has them. Do you care for deserts? Those are here too. And so is Los Angeles, once described as 7 suburbs in search of a city, now a metropolis transformed from a sleepy village less than a century ago. The city of the angels, the city of freeways, 21,000 miles of roads in Los Angeles County. Where do they go on those endless miles of pavement? Well, they go to work and they go to play. The word laid back is often heard out here because much of their play is slow-paced. It was the sun that drew millions from the colder lands to the east. Sunshine and citrus fruit go together, of course, and that created a principal industry. Sunshine also drew the movies to Southern California. It occurred to the early moguls, as they were invariably called, that they could make their product more economically if they could depend on sunshine to shoot in. And so Hollywood was born, the dream factory. When the Olympics were held here in 1932, the era of glamour was at its peak. All Klieg lights and world premieres and movie stars, a new breed of American royalty. What the gold medal is to the Olympics, the Oscar is to the film business. And this is the home of the Oscar and of the stars whose names still have a luster decades after they first found fame. It's a different Hollywood today than in 1932, but it still lures the kids from the Kansas farms and the eastern city streets to try to make it in the movies, to see themselves 10 times bigger than life on the silver screen. Hollywood has always been fascinated with the dark corners of the mind. From the Phantom of the Opera to the Snake Pit to the Exorcist to whatever happened to Baby Jane. Even in the tourist attractions here, you can bring to the surface of the mind the strange pictures that lurk below. But Los Angeles is different than it was during the games of 1932. Not just sunsets and citrus and stars, but the capital of the American West, a metropolis now, with high-powered business and culture to match. And this week, the gathering place for the athletes of the world. Come like the people before them with a dream. Come to the West to wish upon a star. Wave carrying it right now, Dr. Sammy Lee, a gold medalist in diving in 48 and 52. Hours now until the great flame will be lighted in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and tonight we've been following the torch live through the streets of LA if you've just joined us. We've also been looking back to some of the places that this torch has been in its journey across America. For example, it went to Washington and the White House. Kurt Thomas, the great American gymnast, now an ABC sports commentator, had the honor of carrying the Olympic torch to the White House, where, as you see, he's greeted by President Reagan. Kurt missed his chance for Olympic gold 4 years ago because of the American boycott of the Moscow Games. This time, of course, the Soviets aren't here, and one sport in which they will be missed is Kurt's specialty. Gymnastics have become a major sport in recent years, as you well know, but the sport is hardly a Johnny-come-lately. Gymnastics is one of the oldest of all sports. It goes back to the ancient Greeks and was one of the 9 sports contested in the first modern games in Athens in 1896. In fact, the top medal winner of those games was a German gymnast named Hermann Weingartner, who took 3 golds, 2 silvers, and a bronze. Peter Corman became the first American gymnastics medalist in 44 years when he took a bronze in Montreal in 1976. Aside from St. Louis in 1904, the only other impressive performance by Americans was Los Angeles in 32. But the modern era has been dominated for the most part by the Soviet Union, with great champions like Nikolai Andrianov, who won 7 medals at Montreal in 1976. Chun Fujimoto provided an emotional moment when he helped his country win the team championship while performing with a shattered kneecap. Women were seen in team exercises as far back as 1928, but their individual competition began in 1952. Vera Chaslavska of Czechoslovakia won 4 gold medals in 68. On the victory stand, sharing a gold medal with a Soviet, she averted her eyes during the Russian anthem. A world explosion of gymnastics was set off at Munich in 1972 by the tiny girl with the crooked smile, Olga Korbut. As a substitute on the Soviet team, she seized opportunity and dazzled the officials and the watching millions with her performance and her personality. Nadia Comaneci of Romania reinforced the impact of Olga 4 years later in Montreal. Everyone knows the legend of Nadia now. 7 perfect marks of 10, 3 gold medals, a song whose name was changed to Nadia's theme. In a time when the influence of women is being felt more and more, 2 teenagers from Eastern Europe had led the way in Olympic sports.
This is Pauley Pavilion on the campus of the University of California at Los Angeles in the lovely village of Westwood. The scene of great UCLA basketball teams. It is now gaily fested, and it's going to be the home of gymnastics competition for these summer games of 1984. Right now, behind us, they're having what they call podium training. It means several of the girls' teams here are going through exactly the same routines they will do when the competition begins on Sunday. Hello, everybody. I'm Jack Whitaker, and gymnastics, as you know, can present drama and excitement and build stars, and we expect all 3 of those things to happen here in the next week at Pauley Pavilion. The boycott has certainly hurt this sport. No question about it. The Soviets and the East Germans will be missed, but Romania has come. They've not only come, but they've come with a very strong women's team, and they're being rooted on by their greatest athlete ever, the immortal Nadia Comaneci. There she is, sitting in Pauley Pavilion this very moment. She's grown into a quite lovely young woman, hasn't she? They are here along with the People's Republic of China, who are here not only in strength but with great depth, and the Japanese, and they're the people that the strong United States team, the strongest ever sent to an Olympics, must fight. Joining us here at Pauley Pavilion will be our ABC gymnastic expert for these many years. He's seen all the changes that have happened, especially since '72 in this sport, Gordon Maddox.
Well, Jack, right. Back when we happened upon Olga Korbut in Munich, gymnastics was truly a closet sport, and the popularity has grown so much since then that the commissioners of these Olympic Games have told me that if gymnastics were held in the Coliseum, which has a capacity of about 100,000 people, all tickets for every session would have been sold out the first day that the tickets were available. Well, the Chinese are here, certainly, and they're bringing great excitement. The Chinese men are the reigning world champions, and the women are going to take a strong run for this. And the Romanian women are odds-on favorite to win the women's competition. But I think for the Americans at home viewing these gymnastics competitions, the big story will be the American team. The U.S. men and women have a fantastic chance to bring home just a ton of hardware, and that's gold, silver, and bronze in both the team competition and in the individual events. And for me, I think that's an exciting prospect.
Thank you, Gordon. Helping Gordon and I in the men's competition will be the young man you saw a few moments ago carrying the Olympic torch across the White House lawn. He's no stranger to that torch. He was a contestant in Montreal in 1976. He developed this move, which bears his name, and it's in the vocabulary of gymnasts now, the Thomas Flare. He grew up to become world champion, and we're happy to say that this week he'll be wearing the ABC blue. Here's Kurt Thomas.
Thanks, Jack. Well, as the excitement begins to build here, so does the pressure. And I can remember back in 1976 when that pressure was building so tremendously, not only to compete for your team and your country, but also to compete for yourself. And a man who's brought a lot of time and effort into the sport and has handled a lot of pressure is this man right here, Peter Vidmar. Scored a 10-0 in this event, the horizontal bar, in the trials for the United States Olympic team. He's with me now, and he's the captain of this team. Peter, how is the team feeling?
Well, we feel very, very good. We just had our last podium training last night, and it was the best training that we've ever had on the podium, and we're just so glad that we're all going to be a part of history. We can safely predict that we're going to win a medal, and I think the question just is what color, and I'm just glad to be part of it.
Speaking of the pressure and how many times you've been involved in the pressure, how are you affected now? It's in your hometown. I know you've been waiting a long time for this. What's going on in your head?
It's hard to say. I think right now I'm just trying to hone in on every routine, trying to make sure that everything's just right, and to forget about the pressure. I remember at the trials there was quite a bit of pressure, sometimes more than the actual Olympics or World Championships itself. And I can remember chalking up for that first event and saying, wow, here it goes. But right away I pushed that out of my mind and said, wait a second, you're ready. There's no reason why you should ever miss a routine. And I went up there. I had a successful meet. Hopefully I can keep that kind of an attitude for this one. Of course, it's going to be a little bit bigger, but I think I'm prepared, and I really think that the team's prepared.
Okay, let's go USA, and back to Jack.
Thank you very much, Kurt and Peter. That's an idea of what the men are facing here in these Olympic Games. For the first time in history, United States women have a real chance at winning a medal. And we're going to talk more about that when we return to Pauley Pavilion in just a moment. Pauley Pavilion, where the gymnastics competition will be held, and joining our broadcast team once more is a young lady you might remember from Mexico City in that summer of 1968. She certainly was one of the persons who popularized the sport of gymnastics in the United States, especially women's gymnastics. Kathy Rigby on the balance beam. She joins our broadcast team for the women's events here in Pauley Pavilion, and let's go to her right now.
Thank you, Jack. You can't imagine the thrill of standing in this gymnastic Olympic arena. When I competed in the 68 and 72 Olympics, we were just struggling to get to the top, and now we're there with the United States team. The lady that could win a gold medal, Mary Lou Retton, is the one that has been wowing American audiences, and especially with this performance in the Olympic trials. She's been wowing the world as well. And Mary Lou, we have a chance for the first time to win a gold medal. How are you feeling with the Olympics only a few days away, your competition?
I'm ready to go. I'm very anxious. The atmosphere here is great, and I'm ready to start tomorrow.
Along with the exposure that you've received, the media attention, comes a great deal of pressure. How are you handling that?
The TV and the media is a lot of pressure, but you just have to block all that out, and that just comes from experience. And when you're up there on the podium competing, you just have to block everything out, like I said, and concentrate on what you're doing.
Now, I know a month ago you had knee surgery. How is that feeling, and will it affect you up here in the competition?
My knee is as good as new. In fact, it's better. It had no effect on my training whatsoever. I was in the gym 2 days after the surgery.
How will the team do, Mary Lou?
The Romanian team is strong, but they're going to be hard to beat. But I think if we hit, we're going to do it. I'm psyched.
Mary Lou, you certainly will win the hearts of America and the world. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Jack, back to you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Also joining our broadcast team will be Ann Simon, who will be doing interviews and taking us places in Pauley Pavilion where we can't go. Podium practice continues here live from Pauley Pavilion. This is gymnastics, the sport that tells us what a lovely thing the human body is and what amazing things it can do. It starts on Sunday. We hope you'll join us. Right now, let's go back to Jim McKay.
All right, Jack, do you see how many people were in Pauley Pavilion just to watch those kids practice out there? Wait till the competition begins. Well, I'm sure you've gathered by now that our ABC Sports effort will be a large one here. But perhaps you're not aware that as the host broadcaster, as it's called, we also must provide the pictures constantly for the rest of the world, an audience that at times will number more than 2 billion people. That's right. That takes more equipment and wires than man had dreamed of just a few years ago. So to untangle the wires for us and to put the technical effort into perspective, we bring you a man whose technical expertise is exceeded only by his lust for a variety of assignments. A man well remembered by us on the ski slopes and in the pizza parlors of Sarajevo. Ray Gandalf.
When this broadcast began tonight like this is what it looked like from our end.
Roll 174 and dissolve slowly.
It's appropriate that the biggest, most extravagant television production ever mounted should originate from two of Hollywood's old dream factories. The Olympics are fact, of course, not fancy, but they encompass dreams and striving against improbable odds, all that romantic Hollywood stuff. The ABC Television Center is the old Vitagraph Warner Brothers lot where Al Jolson and Mary Pickford and Rin Tin Tin used to manufacture dreams.
Who paid the rent? Miss it. Rip and wink off. When wink off. When away.
Now it's the nerve center of an operation that will reveal athletes' dreams and achievements and failures for 180 hours in 18 days. The stories will be told here in the studio. They will be sifted and sorted and built by people studying 77 monitors in a control room. There are 3 control rooms, receiving information from 205 live cameras covering 25 sports at 30 different locations, 190 miles and 5 area codes apart. The other movie lot is the old Columbia Pictures studio, where Ronald Reagan courted Nancy Davis in a picture called Hellcats of the Navy.
I was afraid you wouldn't come.
Heard about Wes?
Yes.
Talk about improbable odds and dreams come true. From here, ABC is providing Olympic pictures for all the world to see, covering every event in every sport from start to finish, 1,300 hours in all. From this feed, some 1,600 broadcasters from 150 nations and territories will provide their own commentaries in their own languages. The worldwide Olympic audience is expected to be 2.5 billion people. Billions of written words will pour forth from the multilingual typewriters of the print journalists. More than 8,000 journalists from 141 countries. There at a third facility, the Los Angeles Convention Center. Back at the ABC television studios, these dishes gather in all the electronic signals and spew them back out all over the world. One signal from the Lake Casitas Olympic venue with mountains in the way will bounce up and down off a satellite and travel 45,000 miles to get here in less than a second. Clearly, you will have an abundance of wonderful things to see, so we had better have something to say. Jim, that's your cue.
You know, Ray, as well as I do, that Roone always says the worst idea he ever had was agreeing to pay us by the word. You know that. We'll think of something to say. Good to have you with us. For a poet of the newsroom, your technical stuff is terrific.
Thank you, Jim.
Ray Gandalf. Let's have a look now at the torch. Let's see where it is in the streets of Los Angeles. The crowd growing and growing and growing. Tight shot of the torch itself, and now from overhead, moving back. Much more to come. Stay with us.
The games of the 23rd Olympiad continue.
And so we're back in Los Angeles. You know, the organization of these games has been one of the most difficult tasks, really, faced by anybody in America for the past several years. The man who has borne the brunt of the slings and arrows of sometimes outrageous fortune, and who also has received much of the credit for the successes that have come, is Peter Ueberroth, the president of the Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee. Howard Cosell talked with him earlier today.
Peter, the presiding head of everything going on here, your estimate as to security on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, more than 10. Every single law enforcement agency has done its best, and they're doing their very best here. That we've paid them a lot of money, and they're coordinating it well, and yet it's not oppressive to the athletes. It's not something that is, the games are open, the villages are open. I think it's great.
Smog, how much will it affect the athletes?
The doctors and the coaches tell me not at all. Most all the events are scheduled for the athletes. Air quality's pretty good. We've been lucky so far. The athletes will show it on the field of play when they break some records. You watch that.
Since the viewers have already seen other sports and giant athletes from other countries, you've got to have a feeling of pride, regardless of other circumstances, about the number of nations and the number of athletes who are here, don't you?
Well, it's a compliment to the Olympic movement and to this country. We have such a combined heritage here. We have such a diverse heritage in Southern California that all 140 nations that are here have people living here whose heritage go back to their countries, and that's the first time in the Olympic movement.
But some problems remain oppressive, and they will occur every day during the course of the games. For instance, you spoke today to a Libyan official. Where do they stand?
Well, they're not sure whether they're going to be in the games or not. They only have one athlete. He's a weightlifter, and I don't want to give them much attention. If they want to go home, we'll show them the way to the airport.
If a Libyan athlete does march in the opening day ceremonies, what's the possibility of his unfurling a PLO flag?
Well, we made a decision to not accept the PLO into the games. And we'll look that fellow over there, one athlete, very carefully, and there will be no banner at the opening ceremonies.
No possibility?
No.
Finally, what's your reaction to Moscow not taking the feed of the games?
Well, I think that's a positive thing. It's sad for them, but they can sense that these are going to be great games. They're going to sense that the Chinese are competing for the first time. The Romanians are here. They don't want their athletes to see that. And so they'll shut it down so that their people cannot see anything that could be a bright moment in our country's history.
How do you want these games to be remembered, Peter?
Very simple. I want it to be a great athletic event for the athletes of the world and a great moment of pride for the people of this country.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
You're in for a tough row.
It's going to be tough, but then I'll need a lot of luck.
The flame will be lighted in the Memorial Coliseum almost 24 hours to the minute from now. Carrying the torch, as you look here, tape from a moment ago, is Jamal Wilkes, the pro basketball player. Played here for UCLA as a collegian, was once the NBA Rookie of the Year. If there is one Olympic event that epitomizes the traditionally masculine qualities of toughness and endurance, it's the marathon. The event of Spiridon Lewis, the Greek shepherd who won at the first modern games in Athens, was offered many prizes as a reward, but refused them all, except a horse and cart to return to his own village. The marathon was the event of Dorando Pietri, the Italian who staggered into the stadium in London in 1908, was helped across the finish line by confused officials and later disqualified with their mistake. But it's the women's turn now. The women's turn to fight through those last 6 miles, the ones that make the difference. Those miles have never been easy for the male of the species. Was there ever a man with the endurance of Emil Zatopek of Czechoslovakia? He didn't look the part. Spectators felt sorry for this apparently exhausted runner until they watched him win the 5,000 meters, the 10,000, and the marathon, all in the course of 8 days in Helsinki, 1952. It was the first marathon he ever ran. But it's the women's turn now. They first participated in Olympic track and field in 1928. When several runners collapsed during the 800 meters, it was decreed that women couldn't run that far, and the 200 was their longest Olympic event until 32 years later. And now the marathon. You'll go a long way, baby. 26 miles, 385 yards. The marathon was the event of Ethiopia's Abibi Bikila. padding through the streets of Rome in his bare feet to win in 1960, finishing at the Arch of Constantine, victory symbol of the nation which had ravaged his country just a few years before. Later, those untiring legs would hang useless from his torso. He became a paraplegic, victim of an automobile accident. He died too young. The marathon was the event of Frank Shorter, bringing glory to Yale University as the fictional Frank Merriwell had done before him. Even as it might have been in a Frank Merriwell story, Frank Shorter was preceded into the stadium in Munich in 1972 by an imposter. But Shorter had paid the price of the long course, and the true victory was his. 4 years later, Shorter experienced the marathoner's nightmare, the stranger. The marathoner watches for the devil he knows, the opponent whose strengths and weaknesses are well known to him, the one with whom he may duel over those last 6 miles and win or lose this athletic chess game. Here was the stranger in the rainy streets of Montreal. Only later would Frank Shorter know the name of the man who beat him, Waldemar Cierpinski of East Germany. But it's the women's turn now. Their turn to know the challenge and the glory, the exhaustion and the frustration of the Olympic marathon. The men will be here, of course. Rob Di Castella of Australia will be the favorite, and Alberto Salazar, Cuban-born and American now, will be one of the challengers. And so will the man who beat him in the Olympic trials, the man with the explosive name of Pete Bitzinger. And there will be the man with the name that falls trippingly from the tongue, Gidama Shahunga of Tanzania, and Carlos Lopes of Portugal. But there will also be Greta Weitz of Norway, who first proved that a woman can go the distance, and Joan Benoit of Maine, who is as tough and enduring as the rock-bound coast of her native state. And so the marathon will be what it always has been, the ultimate test, but now for women as well as men. For the men, there's a past, not for the women. Many surprises lie ahead. What will be their version of the nobility of Spiridon Lewis, the agony of Dorando Pietri, the absurdity of the imposter in Munich, the bittersweet story of Abibi Bakila, the victory and the defeat of Frank Shorter? No one knows, but it's the women's turn now. With no concessions given, the same distance on the same course as the men, the same strain on the human system, the same glory waiting for the winner, the same satisfaction for every runner who finishes the course. It's their turn now. They've earned it. It should really be something. You'll be seeing that first Olympic women's marathon a week from Sunday, August 5th at 10:30 a.m. Eastern.
Side 9, 8, 10.
This was a rehearsal for tomorrow's opening ceremony almost 2 weeks ago on a high school athletic field. Actually, rehearsals have been going on for 7 or 8 months. The entire cast tomorrow will number more than 9,000 people. This was rehearsal. Opening ceremonies have provided us with many beautiful, spectacular, and poignant moments from Mexico City to Munich to Montreal and now to Los Angeles, where tomorrow evening back east, Hollywood will be on the spot. Can the entertainment capital of the world equal or perhaps surpass the displays put on in other places, other times? Well, the man on the spot will be the well-known television producer and the producer and commissioner of the opening ceremony in Los Angeles, David Wolper. There is the peristyle end. That is where the flame will be lit tomorrow as you look right there. The sun about to set in Los Angeles. David, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, you know, you really are going to be on the spot. You sure you want to get through with this tomorrow?
Well, I think I will. I'm excited about it. I feel a great obligation because the opening ceremonies, you know, sets the tone for the whole Olympic Games, and we really got to do something and get these Olympic Games going in a right spirit.
What was the overall concept in your mind?
Well, for the opening ceremonies, I wanted them to be majestic, inspirational, but above all, emotional. As you know, I've seen 6 Olympic Games, and I've watched the tapes of all the other opening ceremonies. And the one thing I think that is most important is emotion. And I think I've added a lot of emotion. Let's say there's 10 goosebumps in an opening ceremonies. I think I've added 10 goosebumps.
Well, we were at the rehearsal, of course, the dress rehearsal in full costume yesterday. I must say I was moved right there, and so were the people. Well, those, I believe, were relatives of the people in the cast. There were about 20 to 25,000 of them, and they sure were touched and moved, even though there were only stand-ins for the athletes coming in.
Well, I know, and I was quite shocked about the emotion that it engendered. but I think that's what I'm going for. I want it to be very inspirational and a majestic feeling. And of course, you know, we have parts of the show that tell about American music, because each opening ceremonies is supposed to have a part that displays their country's culture and dance. And we here in America have this great music that travels around the world. So we have a very important section called the Music of America that will be displayed tomorrow.
That's right, with Dixieland, with Gershwin, with Hollywood, with Broadway, and of course there will not be unfamiliar music, David, anywhere in the world, because you say it's maybe our #1 export.
Yes, that's one of our biggest exports is movies and motion pictures. So I think that people around the world will recognize our music. In other Olympic Games, there may be music that's generic to that country, and other people don't know it. But here, our music is so known throughout the world that I think everybody will enjoy the musical section.
David, good luck to you tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be a matter of luck. It's going to be pure professionalism. I think it's going to be an absolutely marvelous ceremony. 7:30 Eastern Time. Right now, as we continue live, the torch is continuing through the streets of Los Angeles. It won't be long. It won't be long. Less than a day now until it comes into the stadium and these games begin.
Beatrice, tomorrow we're gonna be there too. We're Beatrice, knowing us. You've grown with us. We're Beatrice, you've known us all along.
You might not recognize our name, but chances are you've enjoyed our products for years. And we stand behind every one, which might be the reason we've been around so long. And a pretty good reason to remember our name.
Beatrice, you've known us all along.
There is the torch still being carried through the streets of Los Angeles. There had been a rumor around here that the flame would be lighted not by an American, but by Nadia Comaneci of Romania. Well, Peter Uberoth, the president of the organizing committee, squashed that this afternoon. He said, no, I won't tell you who it is, and that is a major secret here tonight, but it will not be Nadia Comaneci. Bob Beatty is still with the torch, riding along. Bob, you must have seen some interesting and moving things as you've gone along there tonight.
Fantastic coming along. I think probably the most moving thing to me was when we went through Koreatown and Dr. Lee, the two-time Olympian, came out and ran with his child at his side. And I'll tell you, it was really something. I mean, it was like they almost there were so many people. Also, at one time, with the freeway, all the cars had stopped on the freeway, and people had got cars and come over to watch. Can you imagine the traffic jam that one caused?
Okay, Bob Beatty, tell me that last anecdote again. We couldn't quite hear you on the last one. Tell us again.
Oh, okay.
There you are. Okay, a little transmission problem from Bob Beatty riding ahead of the Olympic torch. It has been carried through the area called Little Korea. It first came here last weekend. It was carried around many parts of Los Angeles. They'd expected tens of thousands of people, instead of which they had millions of people. It then went down towards the San Diego area, made its way back up here. It started out at 6 o'clock this morning and will not be put away for the night until shortly after midnight. Bob, let's try to contact you again. We didn't hear you too well the last time. Go ahead.
I'll tell you, this is an unbelievable scene. I think that the best is coming up, and our cameraman actually said it to me just a little while ago. It really feels good, Jim. It feels good out here. It really does. This is unbelievable. All these people have come out on this all the way along. We've been now for about 15 miles. We've seen traffic jams. We've had near riots. We're about to change something. As you can see, we have a new.
Yeah, we have a new torchbearer, I think, with the end of what Bob was going to say.
We have Fred Nelson coming up right now, and he's going to get his 6/10 of a mile.
Okay, there have been so many stories as this torch has gone across America. Down in Georgia, I remember there was a little girl named Nancy Nix who sold $3,000 worth of brownies that she had baked at the age of 9 in order to be able to carry the torch for 1 kilometer. And all the money, remember, that's been gotten from those $3,000 purchases will go to the advancement of American youth sports. And it's going to be well over, I believe, $10 million that they will have acquired in that way. So there is the torch. We're still live. So let's take one more break, and then we'll be back to wrap things up on our pre-Olympic program here in Los Angeles. Well, here's a brief preview look for you of what you're going to see at the opening ceremony tomorrow. This was the dress rehearsal that I spoke of in costume at the Coliseum yesterday. And all the people you see in the stands, about 25,000 of them, were relatives of the entire cast. No one is being paid here to be in this show. They've been rehearsing, as I said, some of them for as long as 7 or 8 months. They're doing it just for the thrill, and tomorrow you'll be seeing the opening ceremony starting at 7:30 Eastern Daylight Time. That's 4:30 Pacific. It will be live in both areas. Of course, it'll be 6:30 in Chicago and in the Midwest. The story of the torch. It started, of course, in Greece. It will be put to bed just after midnight tonight at 71st Street and Crenshaw in central Los Angeles. It will move again in the morning and will proceed about 31 miles tomorrow before finally reaching the Coliseum. And who will be the person who will carry it into the stadium once around the track and then up the long stairway to light the flame in that Coliseum? Well, nobody knows except a very tight band of people, among them Peter Uberoth, the president of the Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee, and I'll tell you, he won't tell anybody. We have tried and tried. We cannot find out who is going to light the flame. Well, maybe that is as it should be. Maybe we should be surprised with you when whoever it is enters the stadium. However, I did ask Peter, and he said, I said, will it be somebody that I will recognize when he comes into the stadium? He said, yes. But he didn't say it would be a man or a woman or an American or exactly what. The torch itself, well, as we said, it's been everywhere. A little 5-year-old girl carried it in San Francisco. A 90-year-old man carried it. As we said, the lame, the halt, and the blind have participated, and the strong, the fleet, and the handsome. It's really been a story. But it's reaching its destination soon. So tomorrow it begins. The tumult and the shouting, the glory and the heartbreak, the endless search for excellence, which to me is the heart and soul of every Olympics. It'll begin and end with planned ceremony, but everything in between will be extemporaneous, ad-lib, the performances of the athletes. Extemporaneous in execution, but years in the hoping and dreaming and endless training and self-deprivation. The athletes will give the games their personality, and we'll try to identify that personality for you as it forms itself before our eyes, yours and mine. And when it's done, we would hope that the feeling will reflect the thought well expressed by a poet named Paul T. Owens. He wrote, "Nothing ever dies, not even the cry of the crowd wanting more." I'm Jim McKay. I'll see you at the opening ceremony tomorrow. Good night.
The games of the 23rd Olympiad have been brought to you by the Coca-Cola Company and your Coca-Cola bottler at the 1984 Olympic Games. Coke is it. By IBM. IBM salutes the spirit of the Olympics. And by Arco, Atlantic Richfield Company, proud sponsors of the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. We wish to thank AT&T for their contribution to the Olympic Torch Relay. Travel arrangements made through and a promotional fee paid by United Airlines, the official airlines of the 1984 LA Olympic Games and proud sponsor of the U.S. Olympic team.